Hello, my name is Brian Henry. I'm the Acting National Fire Weather Program Manager for Predictive Services with your fire season outlook. Let's start with Alaska. Fire season up there has become quite active over the last month, and they're having a very busy season. Fuels are very dry and they're getting drier. They had some recent rainfall, but it's not enough to reduce the fire potential in that state. Resources continue to flow into the state as the number of fires increase in both size and intensity. Unfortunately, that's going to continue at least through the month of July and possibly into August before the late summer rains start kicking in. Latest weather model data shows that significant high pressure ridge events are expected during the month of July, and they will be of long duration and possibly produce record setting heat. That will continue to dry those fuels and drive fire activity. Looking down into the lower 48, we're now starting to see subtle increases in the fire activity across the west. The grasses have now dried and cured, and they are now receptive in those middle and lower elevations. The only thing lacking at the moment are ignition sources. A lot of times that comes from lightning. The southwestern monsoon is the main driver of that lightning activity, and it is delayed in the southwest. New Mexico is getting a little bit of that moisture, but Arizona remains dry as that monsoon continues to be delayed. And it will continue to be delayed for the next couple of weeks until we get to later in the month when the monsoon finally shows up. So until then, we're expecting for a gradual entry into that western fire season with activity slowly increasing to normal across much of the west. We're still very much concerned about the fuel loading in the Great Basin and across California. If you recall, the spring was very wet and also very cool, and it produced a lot of soil moisture, which grew an incredible grass crop in many locations. That grass crop is now dry, cured, and receptive to fire activity should a triggering event occur. Looking up in the higher elevations, the timber is still in good shape. There is snowpack still lingering across parts of the higher elevations in the Great Basin and across the Sierra in California. That's coming off at a much later than average date, and that'll mean that those higher elevations will come into play later as has been expected. So we're probably looking at August before they fully enter the fire season there. Across the northern Rockies, conditions continue to remain a little bit moist up there, so the fuels there are gradually drying out and thankfully not at an accelerated rate. The Pacific Northwest was another area of concern that we were monitoring through the spring and early summer months, and the fuels there continue to slowly dry out. They've benefited from the presence of an upper level trough that's been over the state for the better part of the last month, which has kind of reduced some of the significant fire potential there temporarily, but that trough is going to be exiting the region in the next couple of days. So look for those fuels there to dry out to be able to support fire activity in the coming weeks. Looking in the east is largely out of fire season, although subtle occurrences of fire are still being observed across portions of Georgia, the Carolinas, and northern Florida. Those conditions will continue to be observed until they get tropical moisture into the area from either sea-land breeze interactions with thunderstorms that form during the afternoon periods or potentially a tropical system impacting the area. As we move forward into the future, into August and September, August is the peak of the western fire season. We're expecting a normal peak across the west. California is one of the areas that we're watching closely. Great Basin as well. That grass crop again is going to remain receptive, and of course those higher elevations will come into play later in the month as well. Pacific Northwest will also reach their peak during the month of August, possibly into early September. And then as we transition into the fall, mid-September into October, we typically have a wetting rainfall event or a series of wetting rainfall events that impact the west, which gradually allows for much of the west to exit the fire season. We're expecting that again this season. And again, usually there's a little bit of a lull in California in early October before they kick in with their fall fire season with the onset of Santa Ana or other east wind events. That concludes this month's fire season outlook. Thank you for listening.